All right, boys, sit up straight, cut your damned hair, and wipe that smirk off your face. It's PetaPixel podcast time.
Oh my God.
Where did that
You excited?
I did cut my hair yesterday, though.
I cut my hair too. That's what made me think of this.
Wow, there you go.
You look great, Jaron. Chris, what's your excuse?
I shaved my beard this morning. It's
does
all
look nice.
trimmed down. I
it
do
looks
need a
good.
haircut though.
Oh, well, then this was a terrible opening statement on my part. Okay, I should have really looked into your little windows before I
Trying
started
to catch us
talking
out
here.
on something that you can't. Oh man.
Well, you better straighten up and fly right if you want a podcast, boys. How about that?
Sure.
What is going on? All right,
I'm
perfect.
trying to 1950s dad encourage you here, all right?
Oh, okay. I do normally
to
respond
excel.
to.
You'll
I do
both
normally
excel
respond
with
to
this.
toxic masculinity. So yes.
Well, everyone seems to be in a fantastic mood this morning. It's good to see you both. I'm Jaron Schneider. That's Jordan Drake, who introduced us. And then Chris Nichols, of course, is the other one of us. If you don't know who we are, well, that's interesting. You can
We just
listen to
did
We're
it.
the
That's
PetaPixel
all of us.
podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a lot going on today, right, Jordan?
We do. So we are going to talk to someone who owns a very large camera store, the camera store, in fact, here in Alberta. Peter June is going to join us, and he is also our former employee.
Yes.
For like a
employer.
decade, and Chris for like
Employer.
15 years?
Employer.
Employer, yes.
Yes, he's our employer, and we gave him the best years of our life, and he's going to tell us all about the industry from his point of view, and it should be very good. I'm sure there'll be lots of tea.
Yeah. As well, we got absolute boatloads of news here coming up.
Yeah,
but before we
just
get to that, guys, I always like to kick things off with a little bit of a question. So I want to know, we're kind of like, what would you say, Chris? Like E-grade celebrities, F-grade celebrities, probably, down the totem pole.
Yeah.
But a little bit of clout. So if you could use that to get on any like actual day, like a game show, which one would it be? Which one do you think you could excel at if they brought you on?
Okay,
And I'm not talking like a dating show. This has to involve cash prizes based on your
he would have killed it on like Shot at Love
Chris
with
would just
Tequila.
chew
Love
up
is
like a
Blind.
Love is
I would
Blind.
destroy Love is Blind. What game show would I want to be on? You know what? I've always had a soft spot for The Price is Right. I'm not a big game show dude. I don't like to, it wasn't like I watched a lot, but as a kid growing
I'm
up,
very surprised.
Price is Right. Well, you had a different thought pattern there. No, because it's like, to a kid, it's fascinating. It's like fun games and cool noises. And, I always remembered to spay and neuter my pets. So I think it was a great, even the fish. So I think it was a great, I would be on that show. That was fun.
See, I really thought, because you're just such a random assortment of facts, like when we're traveling, you just like go to the Wikipedia of whatever's around. So I actually thought you would do fairly well on like Jeopardy or something, because I have no like general knowledge of anything. I just have like
only the
three
video
things
industry.
that I
Yeah.
fixate on with a
that's
laser
true.
vision. So I thought you'd do quite well. I was going to say Price is Right, but because I always find while watching that, like I can actually spitball American prices. If there was a Canadian version, baby, I would clean up, no question.
Okay.
I know how much stuff costs. Jaron, what about you?
Well, I'm not even E or F. I'm not one at all. But I don't know if it counts as a game
You're S
show.
grade in my eyes.
I would like to be on Dimension 20.
What's that?
Oh, yes. Okay. Is that a game show?
They're playing a game, and it's a show.
Oh, stop. That's
Is there a
strange
cash prize?
D&D campaigns.
Yeah, it's just a D&D campaign that's on TV, or it's on Dropout anyway. I guess if you force me, I'd do Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's the one where I would probably know the most. I don't know enough Jeopardy, and I don't know, my wordsmithing is shockingly bad when it comes to like seeing blanks. So Wheel of Fortune wouldn't work for me either.
I can't do Wheel of Fortune. No.
Yeah, and you guys took Price is Right, which is the one that I think most people would say they could do well on because it's seemingly common knowledge. But yeah, I'll take Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's the only one that I feel like I could probably do okay at.
I'm a trash baker, so I could probably, I'd be fun on Nailed It, where they just bring out, people who have no skill whatsoever at making food. But I wouldn't win. So that's why it was vetoed for me. I want something I can excel at.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you'd just be entertaining. You wouldn't actually compete very well.
Yeah. They'd be like, what the hell is that thing? Yeah. I can cook. I can't bake.
Were you going to say something, Chris?
No, I think we should move on.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Why don't we start the show, guys?
Great.
right, and we're back. And of course, the PetaPixel podcast. We love doing this every week, but it would not be possible without our sponsor here, OM System. And there's an interesting event coming up. The next Supermoon is just around the corner, around October 17th, I believe, and it's expected to be the biggest and brightest Supermoon of 2024. So if you want to capture it in all its glory, you need the right gear. OM System Micro Four Thirds cameras and M.Zuiko Digital lenses are great because you can get that long telephoto reach without having humongous optics. The 2x crop factor will double your equivalent focal length, so a 300mm becomes a 600, and so on and so forth. And that means more zoom without the heavy, bulky gear. Speaking of lenses, OM System's telephoto options are fantastic and on sale at up to $700 off right now. The M.Zuiko 300mm f4 IS Pro, I've used it. Very good lens, very sharp, has a fast enough aperture to get you that low light photography, gives you incredible reach, unmatched image stabilization. If you need more flexibility though, the 100 to 400 also very versatile, or even the 150 to 600 if you want to push out to that 1200 millimeter full frame equivalent. That's what you want for the Supermoon. So
Chris,
check it out.
Which one of those lenses has the built-in teleconverter?
That would be
the 4.
Yeah, the 104. Yeah. Very nice. Loved it. Beautiful lens.
I feel like that.
And good aperture. Yes. Yeah. The system's compact size, weather sealing. I mean, we got that lens covered in dust and it survived. You can bring it anywhere. Features like high res mode, focus peaking. I mean, this is all helpful to get that shot that you're looking for. So gearing up for the Supermoon, OM System has you covered. Check out their full line of cameras and lenses at explore.omsystem.com/petapixel or visit your local authorized OM System dealer today.
Like the camera store?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just going to say, is that an authorized OM System? I would assume so. Thank you, Chris.
100% they are.
Thanks to OM System for sponsoring the PetaPixel podcast. Let's get started with just a gigantic dump of news we need to cover. So let's first talk about Fujifilm, because they had one of their summits. And you guys got to use, here we go. Jordan's bringing them out. So first, I guess we're going to talk about the two lenses. We can do that. The XF 500mm f5.6 and the 16 to 55 f2.8 RLMWR2. Okay, there we go. These are very differently sized lenses. Now, by the time when you're listening to this podcast, if you're listening to it as we typically publish on Wednesdays, we have not published a hands-on with either of these. That is coming, but if you guys wanted to give
super soon,
give some sneak peeks at what to expect.
Yeah, nice lenses. I mean, the 500mm f5.6, it has been revamped for the APS-C system. It's not exactly the same lens, but it is very similar to the GFX version of the 500mm 5.6. Very, very similar.
Isn't it optically identical?
Which is a good thing.
Is it not?
Basically, and again, I think it's important to understand, even when our first looks impression video comes out on Saturday here, this is pre-production. So there's only so much we can talk about and test, right? But I think it's still important because these are interesting products. And the XM5, which we're going to talk about, that video hit and it's crazy. It's super popular. You guys are watching like crazy. Up. Yeah, we appreciate that.
So there's iPhone or something.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of interest, but this 500mm 5.6, I'm confident it's going to be incredibly sharp. If it is a similar formula, APS-C is just going to use the central part of it, which is where the lens does its best work. So I think this will be a fantastic choice. I was most impressed by that 16 to 55 2.8 version 2, however, because it is way lighter than the original. They shaved off over 200 grams. Like it's crazy how much weight they saved, but it feels light, but it's still rugged, linear motors, weather sealed, doesn't feel cheap. The manual focus ring is still nice and smooth. So I'm actually really eager to play with that when we get a full production version.
Yeah, I think we'll be using it a lot as a walk around. And I know there was a while there where it was like, I think the Sony 2470 GM was lighter than the Fujifilm 16 to 55, and it's like, this is APS-C. It's covering a smaller. Why is this so big? So this is now, if you're getting into APS-C because you want to scale back the size of your kit, now this actually really makes sense with a pro standard zoom. I think it's a good call.
Cool. Well, you touched on it, but there's also the XM5, which you guys seem pretty enamored with, other than the fact that the displays are a little wanting. And by displays, I mean display, because it only has one.
Display singular.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's really, it's obvious that this is a hybrid camera, and I think it's definitely more aimed at videographers and photographers. I'm sure Jordan will want to talk about that.
Yeah, he talked for a while in the video, like it's the percentage of time is more Jordan than usual.
Rightfully so. Like this camera, I mean, it's got a great 26 megapixel X-Trans sensor. It's nice to see that in this camera. I actually liked the controls. I like the small size. I think it's a really nice looking camera. And it handled quite well. And normally when you get entry-level prices like this, you end up losing command dials or you don't have an autofocus joystick and stuff. And so this has all that. So it's actually really nice handling for photography. And it's super small and it's cute. The downside is you don't have an EVF. I expect that at this price, but it still sucks for especially a photographer, but videographers as well. It's sad that we don't have that. And then the screen itself, it's not a very high grade panel. So, I liked it. I liked the way it looked. I liked the way it feel. I think a lot of people might still want to use it as a compact street camera, but you are limited in how you can compose with it. And yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's important is this does have a mechanical shutter because we've seen like the Panasonic S9 or the Sony ZV-E10 II coming out that are doing this same kind of LCD only compact camera design. But yes, with just an electronic shutter, which leads to some weirdness. So it is nice they threw that on. The other big thing to remember is this doesn't have IBIS. And I really feel like Fujifilm has been dialing back the number of lenses with optical stabilization in them because the IBIS is quite effective on their camera bodies. So you're not going to get a ton of stabilization unless you happen to pair that with a 500 5.6 that has OIS in it. But that would be gross and impractical.
Yeah, we only did that a couple times. But I mean, Jordan, it's got amazing video features. I mean, considering the price of the camera, I love that we get both jacks. I think that's great. Headphone and mic jack.
Headphone jack. Yes.
Yeah, nice quality record modes.
Yeah, 10-bit open gate 422, which again, not even like the Panasonic S9 is able to offer that. So that's really, really handy to see at this price. Of course, we want to test overheating. That's part of what we would do once we get a production camera. But we shot an episode on this little $800 camera, and I didn't mind it at all, except for mashing my eye up to the top right corner of the camera looking for an EVF that wasn't there. So
wasn't there. Right. Yeah. I think, but barring any sort of weird stuff that we find in our full review, I mean, I can't see this being like an amazing gimbal camera, right? Where you don't really need an EVF and the camera's lightweight and you don't need IBIS. I mean, this would be an awesome like gimbal setup for sure.
Yeah, we did still see some autofocus quirks. So again, it's pre-pro, but
I mean, you weren't shooting it, the parts that I noticed on this camera, but there were comments, and I saw them too, that Fujifilm tends to still wobble a little bit on some of the focus catching. And
I mean, here's the thing, again, it's pre-pro. Like for photography, I actually found the autofocus to be quite reliable. But yes, videography, we're going to have to test this. We can't really make judgments about that until we have a final review unit.
Yeah, basically Fujifilm I find so often, if you move the camera, it really confuses the autofocus. Stationary camera, moving subject, it seems to understand. Once the camera starts moving, it really tends to struggle. So we'll see.
Well, that would be a complication if you put it on a gimbal, would it not?
100%. 100%. So let's see. All
right, well, let's move on to the next one. This is a Jordan Drake story. He demanded we cover this, and so we did. The 70 millimeter film reel for the Brutalist needs 26 canisters and weighs 300 pounds.
I mean, I just love this. It has become a thing ever since Oppenheimer is just like, who can drag around the biggest reel? It seems like a real... a real size king. Yeah,
it's a real measuring contest.
Apparently,
this is super cool though.
The film is so long that it has a 15-minute intermission in order for them to like let people use the bathroom. But
it's classic. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know this director, but I just love the idea of like, it's gonna be super long. Okay, that's cool. And we're shooting it on 70. Like, oh wow, that's great. It's so long it needs an intermission. I love this. And this just sounds like exactly the type of just throw everything at the wall cinema that I kind of miss. Who knows if the movie will be good, but I want to see. I'm definitely going to see it. They do still have a 70 mil projector here in Calgary, so there's a chance. We'll see if it opens wide enough for like Cineplex, which would be like Canada's AMC, to actually play it, because all the art house theaters left aren't going to have the ability to play this thing. So we will have to see.
And that's exactly where this movie should play. We'll see.
I'm ready for the Adrian Brody renaissance.
Man. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's been out of it for a long time. It'd be nice to see him come back. Alrighty.
Speaking of films, last week, Apple released the first immersive scripted film made for Vision Pro. It's called Submerged. I've seen it. I have a Vision Pro down here.
What?
I watched it. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Sure. Yeah, hit me.
Describe it frame by frame for the next hour. Go.
Oh, gosh.
I'm so curious about
this. Along with the experience of wearing the Vision Pro on your head the whole time while doing
like, does it
and
feel like a movie or does it feel like a ride? That's kind of the big question I have.
Did you get head lice?
I'm going to try and answer these questions that make sense in order. It was not uncomfortable wear the headset. It's a very short film. It's like 15 minutes long, so that's probably why I didn't notice any problems. I don't have an issue with so far the Vision Pro giving me any type of like motion sickness or anything, so it was great. To answer your question, Jordan, most of the shots are locked. So they have just like it's just sitting there and you can look around, but the camera isn't moving. There are 2 or 3 scenes where the camera moves pretty swiftly from one end of the room to the other. And that does result in that feeling. It's like kind of like right here above the chest. Like if you're falling or moving quickly, like in a car, you would feel it. I got that feeling. It didn't make me sick, but it made me like my brain definitely perceived it as actual movement. I will say that the depth effects that they can achieve with this are quite nice. I can actually look around and see depths in different places. I find it interesting that no one who was in the room while they're shooting could act as though they weren't in the scene because it's capturing everything. You could
just go look at them.
Correct. So yes. So everyone who's in like the initial scene opens with them all like in their bunks. Everyone needs to be acting at that point, especially when everyone like the 2 characters are talking in that scene. Everyone else needs to be on. So it was neat. What I find interesting about this is the director told Collider that the camera system used to record this, and there's a picture of it we have on PetaPixel, was, he said, I believe, custom made by Apple. So the quote is, it's a specially designed stereoscopic camera with microphones that are also in a way multi-directional. Don't quote me on this, Collider continued to quote, but I think it's 64 directions or so the mix, so you can need to record spatial audio. I can state that the audio was great. I could not get any more information to confirm or deny that Apple developed a custom camera. Looking at it, it's not one we've seen before, but it looks
not the
off.
Black Magic.
It looks similar to it in terms of, well, the lenses need to be, I guess, in order for it to work. So of course the distance is the same, but I could get no more information about this thing. Apple said that they did construct custom rigging. That's it. There's a shot of it where you can see that in here, and they're definitely using an iPhone too as like a display, so that's interesting. If you have a Vision Pro, I do recommend watching it. It's quick watch. I had no intention of getting into a submarine, and I still don't, and I definitely don't after this. I will say some of the effects aren't the best. You can tell that they just hit a button and something happened. Like it wasn't as immersive in that sense, and I don't think that's not the Vision Pro's thing. That was just how.
But you didn't vomit, so that's.
I did not vomit. No.
Yeah.
Could you handle a feature this way? Do you think?
Yes, I had no problem with. So I used to think that the headset was kind of heavy. Like when I tried it on at the Apple Store, I thought it was heavy and I wouldn't be able to wear it. But I think once you get the actual fitted for your face, because what you do when you're purchasing all that stuff, it actually is quite comfortable. I don't think I'd have a problem watching a whole movie like this.
This is complete conjecture because who knows what features will actually be made or come to the Vision Pro, or if that'll even take off, right? But like, there's certain movies that are shot for a traditional 2-dimensional panel, and people will get sick, right? Queasy feeling, whatever. So I can't imagine, like, are people just going to be sitting in their living rooms vomiting on themselves? Like,
well, you would immediately,
war
if you start feeling sick, you would take it off. I think the
yeah, but then that defeats.
It's going to be like, well, the movie's still playing. I better just.
What if it's a really compelling scene? Dude, if I was watching the Children of Men car scene and I'm getting sick, I'm going to vomit on myself. The scene.
You're going to ride it out?
100%. Wait, you pause that? Come on.
If they had shot
what a great scene.
If they had shot that with immersive cameras, I don't think it would make you puke because I don't like the motion. You're still, the car is moving, so it'll feel like you're in a car. It legitimately feels like you're where the camera is. If the camera is locked and there's motion in the scene, that doesn't feel weird. It's when it feels like someone lifts you up and moves you. That's what feels weird. So that to me was like, I need more. I would like more examples of that to know how I would feel over long periods of time.
It's a brave new world.
That Children of Men scene, if shot in immersive, would have been outrageously good. Like it would have been hard to look away. It would be so amazing. I want to watch it multiple times.
And then,
the only thing I will say that I wish was a little bit better is you can definitely tell where the scene ends. Like you look around and I could actually see like there's like a bulb that ended up at the top. I think that's where something was actually mounted. You like the immersive level of it is you're not truly in the scene, so maybe that will help with the sickness because you can look away and see that there's like black. So,
well, I'll see it when I believe it.
I just have one last question because we hear all the time like high frame rate is really difficult for actors. Like people don't look like they're acting as well because you're catching more of those micro expressions and stuff than 24. How is the acting in this?
Pretty
Did it
good.
feel stagey or was it convincing?
I thought it was pretty convincing. I wasn't at any point. The only thing that took me out of it was the practical effects that I said were kind of meh.
Right.
There was like an explosion of like sparks that I did like that. This seems kind of weird how that's blowing out right there. It looks like it was particularly put in a small spot so that it would blow out. But the actual acting, the way people were talking, moving, there was like one scene where they actually obviously slowed the frame rate. So he was like, there was a little bit of slow motion. Looked great. Looked really good. I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was good.
All right.
Moving on. Chris, recently you shot an aurora, right? Did you guys actually see the aurora that was like the really big one?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we had quite a few days of it actually here in Alberta. We were pretty fortunate where you could just shoot outside your deck and get nice shots. And of course, a lot of our people like had the time to go out in the woods and they camped out there and they prepared for it. And there's some stunning photography that was pulled off. Absolutely.
Well,
I mean, all across the UK, everywhere. I mean, it was pretty good.
Forget about that. Like, let's just say you don't like leaving your house and you don't want to see that aurora. Well, yes, you know what? No problems. Meta says if you missed them,
coming to the rescue.
you can just go ahead and make those with generative AI. They put this out on Threads 3 days ago and got absolutely lambasted by
as a
lot of people because it seems like an absurd thing to say. And someone asked if you guys would provide your opinions on this. And so as I am fulfilling, please provide your opinions.
Oh boy. Yeah, so here's the thing. Everybody is against it and I think that's appropriate. Like I get it. Like you're not doing the work. You're not putting in the time. And so you're missing out on the experience of actually creating something yourself, right? And there's a lot of merit to that. And so, I think universally it's interesting. There's like nobody who's like, I like it. I think this is cool. Had you seen these photos and it not been said made with AI, and this is a very important thing because this is part of the fear that we have. If someone had just posted these images on Instagram without saying it's AI, how many people would question it?
Yeah,
I think a lot of people just be like, "Damn, great shots!" Like, you got it. That's amazing, right? Especially with all the hype right now of like, oh, the aurora was really good. It was a really strong solar storm. So there's lots of opportunity. People got shots. Like it looks fairly convincing. I wouldn't say it's like obviously fake, honestly. So it looks convincing. So yeah.
I just think they're completely misunderstanding human nature. Like, I don't think it's a lot of people that are like, oh, I wish there was an aurora behind me. I think people are going out, they're like seeing an incredible aurora, and that's when they're taking a picture like, oh, I want to document this to remember it. Where Meta thinks people are just like, oh, they like green blobs behind them in pictures, and our AI can absolutely do that. And I think Jaron wrote like a banging article just saying like, this is another example of what we see over and over and over, where these companies just have outright like disdain for people who are going out and making the art or capturing the moment so they can feed their machine. Like it's not going to generate aurora.
No, I do think it goes to a lot of the people that are responsible for making these decisions have never tried to do this themselves, have no desire, or if they have, they're bad at it. They don't want to learn it. They have no respect for the craft and therefore have no problem dumping on it. And it's the same people who will see a picture that a photographer takes that they put on their Instagram and just steal it and put it on their own Instagram.
Yeah,
because they don't process or think that there's any real value there. Photography is not real to them. And like this is the same. That was the argument I made in the story that Jordan is citing.
I do think so. So again, I don't support this. But from a theoretical standpoint, from a argument's sake standpoint, what is interesting to me about it is that the results are convincing, and they're going to get more convincing. Okay,
yeah, these aren't even particularly good examples of generative AI, and you're right; they are at first glance in a small thumbnail very convincing.
Very convincing, yeah. And so I think the problem is there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to want to just take this route, not put in the work, use AI to do this and put it on their Instagram, and people are going to give them accolades for it. And they're going to get that dopamine rush, and they're going to get that feedback, and they're going to get that validation. And that's a really scary, slippery slope. And I mean, that already happens to some degree, right? Yeah. This is just going to make it way easier and way more rampant. And so that's the part that really concerns me. And so there's got to be those things in place. This shows it more than anything, that you got to have those things in place where it's obvious that it is made with AI, right? And then I don't think people are going to get the accolades that they're hoping for if that's the case. And I think that's the way it should be. So, yeah.
All right.
But there's no doubt it's convincing.
Let's move on to a trifecta of Nikon news that dropped yesterday. Let's start with Nikon says that they will add C2PA content credentials to the Z6 III by mid-2025.
There you go. Big firmware updates and do it. Sure. I mean, it's good that they're jumping on it eventually.
But really surprising because the initial announcement was Z9 is getting this.
There you go.
And
thank you, Jordan.
I do really suspect maybe there's some issue with the processor. That who knows at this point.
Yeah, it seems like they're sort of ignoring that they said that. They're like, they don't think about that we promised Z9. Look, we have Z6 III. I don't know what the deal is. It's a little strange. And it's still like they promised it on the Z9 last year about this time.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's taken
maybe
a
it's
long
just marketing.
time.
This is just another promise. So maybe what they're doing is they're just putting out their promises. They're like, oh, Z9's getting it. Now Z6 III is getting it too. So we're all good. And then when it actually happens, who knows? But, I think it's just from a marketing standpoint, get out all the cameras they can, say it.
But it's weird to leave the Z8 out of the equation if that's what they're doing as well. If they're going to say like, oh, Z9's getting it and also the Z6 III is going to do it, it's the same processor in the Z8. So why is that
it's coming.
Also left out in the cold? I'm curious if there is some hardware limitation. Then they said like, oh, the Z6 III, we can add this little tiny bit of code that needs to be there or a part to the camera so that for the C2PA to work. I don't know. We'll see. I really hope we do see that eventually on the Pro Nikon bodies because they need it the most.
I'm sure of nothing. So yeah, Chris
is I'm sure optimistic. Of nothing.
Well, speaking of the Z8 and the Z9 and still on the Z6 III, they are going to get Frame IO integration through the NX Mobile Air app. This is going to allow film production to be wireless to a certain degree.
Yeah, we're seeing a ton of movement on this. We're seeing it from Fujifilm, really kind of spearheaded it. But as Nikon wants to get taken more and more seriously, and especially since they acquired Red, like they're moving into pro video land. And Frame IO is very quickly becoming the standard. If you want to do
Panasonic's doing it. Everybody's, it's good to see.
They're all jumping on that.
Yeah.
Last story is I found to be a weird one. EssilorLuxottica, the world's largest eyewear company, has invested a 5.1 stake in Nikon. They now own 5.1% of the company. It's at $187 million investment. If you don't know who EssilorLuxottica is, that is by design from EssilorLuxottica. They would prefer you not know. They own Ray-Ban, Oakley, Persol, and Vogue eyewear, but they also have the exclusive rights to produce eyewear for many high-end fashion names like Prada. They also are the parent company of LensCrafters, Pearl Vision, and Sunglass Hut. Oh, and they also own an insurance company called iMed, which is accepted at those 3 stores. So they own the glasses, they own the store that sells them, and they sell the insurance that you use to purchase those things. In America,
doesn't that seem vaguely like it should be illegal to you guys?
We call that vertical integration. That is illegal. Yeah. That's a monopoly.
Yes, but then there are, when you really get into it though, there's like, I don't know exactly how many, but there's like a few, not a lot. There's like a few of these mega glass manufacturers, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like Kraft Foods and, Nestle and stuff. Like these parent companies that then own tons of brands that we just kind of think are individual brands, and they're not. So
Unilever is an example of one that's not an eyewear, but but anyway, they now own parts of Nikon.
But can I get a little conspiracy theory here? Because Jim Jannard made his fortune at Oakley before he started Red. Nikon has now purchased Red. So is there something going on there?
Oh, Jordan, why would you do that?
What's the scoop? Send Jeremy Gray to get us the truth immediately.
Bang the doors
so look,
down.
I can't say this for sure, but I'm pretty sure. So you may or may not know this because the marketing was kind of terrible on it, but Nikon actually did release a line of sunglasses. And the camera store was even carrying them I think they still try to, and honestly, it didn't do very well. And they were nice enough. It's just, I don't know. There's so many other options out there. I would imagine that EssilorLuxottica made those glasses for Nikon. I can't say that for sure, and who cares?
Remember when it was?
Somebody did. But I do remember Nikon having a line of sunglasses. And so, not only mention that, they also make lenses. They made lenses for optical glasses for decades. But they made their own branded Nikon sunglasses. Didn't do very well.
May be related. I don't know when you're remembering this was, Chris, but before EssilorLuxottica was EssilorLuxottica, there were 2 companies, Essilor and Luxottica. Nikon had a business relationship with Essilor, and they were in a joint venture with Nikon to create Nikon Essilor, which is a wholesale lens business based in Tokyo but served the globe. This agreement, I guess, was folded in when Essilor and Luxottica merged in 2017. So
there you go.
Maybe, but there is a relationship here, at least. That does go back many years between these 2 companies. According to EssilorLuxottica, they made the investment to support the strong connections with partner. They did this to support the management, was what I remember reading in here. So interesting. They're supporting the management and the direction of the company based on this rather large investment.
Ooh.
So yeah. All right. I don't like that because I don't like EssilorLuxottica, but we're going to move on. The last thing dropped this morning, just prior to us hitting the record button. Canon announced that it will be announcing. So they announced that they will announce 3 new RF L series, quote, hybrid lenses on October 30th. And I'll show it on screen now. There's a picture of these 3 lenses in silhouette next to 2 lenses we already know about, a 35 millimeter and the 24-105 f2.8. These are their hybrid lenses with the aperture dial that only works in video on older cameras, but is now video and photo on R5 II and R1. What do you guys make of this?
So I guess the first thing that the implication would be that there's 2 primes, or possibly like a prime and a small zoom, and then another longer lens, like 24-105. So this could be like a bigger, longer zoom with a bright aperture. I don't know. In my opinion, it looks like they just straight up copied and pasted the silhouettes of the existing lenses. I mean, you look at the graphic, it looks identical. And this is a graphic, right? So it's all conjecture.
It looks like a photo.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think
let me see if it has EXIF data.
Like everything's the same. The shadows, the same, the angles, everything. So is it possible that they are releasing these hybrid lenses to be physically identical in their outward appearance and shape? Yep. Yes, for balancing reasons. But I don't think it will be, because we've never seen that before in our lives. We've seen companies make very similar physical designs where the weight and balance is the same, but I don't know. Well, I'm skeptical. I think they just copied and pasted for the announcement. I don't think this is exactly what the lenses will look like.
I really think, I mean, they say hybrid, and you say we don't see that. We don't generally see it in photo land, but we absolutely see matched zooms or matched primes in cine land because they need to be able to fit into the same matte box without repositioning it. They need to be the same weight, so you don't have to rebalance anything when you flip those over. I could absolutely see Canon taking a page from what Panasonic has done with their 1.8 primes. They are identical design, and the weight is almost the same on them. I think Canon is leaning in that direction, and it would make a ton of sense.
But there's still always differences with filter ring sizes.
No, there isn't.
Or focus ring placements. It depends. It depends on the lens.
You're wrong.
I don't know. No.
So in this particular case, with the Panasonic idea there, they are all like fully matched, and I think that's what they're going after.
Yes.
So
I don't know. We'll see.
Do you guys want to make any guesses to what these 3 lenses would be? I want to put it out there. We have not been briefed. So if they are correct, this is truly just guessing. But what do you think?
I think we're getting a 24-1.4 and a 51.4 as the standard ones. The big zoom is really interesting to me because the 24-105 starts at 105 and they have a 100 to 300 2.8. So I think it's going to be an ultra wide zoom would be my guess. I think we're going to see something like a 15 to 35, which the shape would be very weird for that. But if the priority is just getting them to all match in the same tube, or it's like a 105 to 200.
It'd be crazy to make a 15-35 the exact same length, I think. I don't see it. I don't know.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Any guesses?
I guess out there, you got to give me a focal length.
Because I guess I'm alone on this. I think they're just showing silhouettes for the sake of showing silhouettes.
All right. But let's say that there is a zoom and 2 primes. What are your guesses? Even if they look completely different.
Maybe a 70 to 200, like a fast 70 to 200 would be interesting. Something made for cinematic work. I could see them making ultra wide zoom. I just don't think it'll have the same silhouette. But I agree with Jordan on a 24 and a 50. That makes a lot of sense. That would be the natural thing to do.
I'm with you. I think it's a 70 to 200 2.8. That's in this same form factor.
Yeah, and their old version doesn't take teleconverters as well. And we even commented with the 24-105, like it looks big, but it's the same size as a classic 70 to 2. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I do think this is what they will look like. We'll find out on October 30th.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
It'll be exciting. It'll be a Halloween present.
Okay. We are going to move into our main story this week, which is Talkin Shop with the owner of TCS. But before we do that, we have a main story sponsor, and it's Tamron. Experience superior optical quality with the Tamron 28-75 f2.8 Di3 VXD G2 lens, designed for Sony E-mount and Nikon Z-mount mirrorless cameras. You guys are familiar with this lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've reviewed it. It's banging.
Great lens.
This versatile lens offers a perfect blend of sharpness, speed, and portability, making it ideal for capturing everything from stunning landscapes to intimate portraits. With its open aperture of f2.8, you can explore your creativity and elevate your photography to new heights. Whether you're a professional or an enthusiast, this lens will help you achieve your vision effortlessly. Here are some things that Tamron wants you to know about this lens. It's got a versatile focal length. That 28-75, you can use it for various shooting styles. Fast aperture, constant f2.8 for stunning low light performance and beautiful bokeh. Bokeh. Yeah. It has superior optical quality. Advanced lens design minimizes distortion and enhances the sharpness. Is this lens sharp, guys?
Very sharp.
Very
yes.
sharp lens.
And I was impressed by the improvement in bokeh. I mean, that was actually one of the big improvements over the first version, and they did a really nice job with that.
Well, it's also apparently lightweight and compact. It's easy to carry for on-the-go shooting. I wouldn't know. I've never used this lens, so I'm going to rely on you guys. It is lightweight.
I agree. I concur.
All right. Well, it also has Tamron's VXD, the Voice Coil Extreme Drive motor for quick and silent focusing. Mm-hmm. It's got a durable build that's weather-sealed and designed for outdoor photography. And it's both a Nikon Z and Sony E. There we go. It's ideal for creatives, perfect for landscapes, portraits, and everyday photography. You should pick up a Tamron 28-75 f2.8 Di3 VXD G2 if this sounds like something that you could use. We'll link down below so you can check it out for yourself. And thanks for Tamron for sponsoring this main story segment. Let's go to that now.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are joined by somebody very special and dear to my heart. We're joined by Peter June, who is the owner and creator of The Camera Store, the store that made the mistake of hiring Jordan and myself many, many, many years ago. And Peter, you own I would say the best camera store in Calgary, certainly the largest camera retailer in Western Canada. And you started at what, 1998?
September 15th, 98. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So in business for a long time, we appreciate you joining us here. It's good to see you, although we're always in the store all the time anyways. And we wanted to get your input as a business retailer, what it's like from that end of the counter in terms of this whole crazy industry that we work in. So thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
Yeah, I think it's really important because so often when we're looking at like what are people interested in or what's popular, we're just looking at like what gets clicks on the website and YouTube. Right. And a lot of that, the people who are actually in buying things or like, paying their bills with photography aren't the same ones that are watching YouTube videos or reading articles a lot of the time. So I think this makes quite a bit of sense for sure. So yeah, just to kind of kick things off, the thing that inspired this for me is we always look at like the Japanese sales numbers are kind of the only metric that we ever have to go off of. They'll release, I think like the dealers there will actually like disclose their numbers to people who ask them. So we find out things, but I'm really curious. What is the state of the photo industry in North America? I mean, of course, you're just looking at your store, but I think it's a big store. It's important and it gives us a good kind of overview.
Yeah, well, business for us is moving along. We just finished our fiscal year, and we are actually up for the year, which is good to see, I think.
Photography's back, baby.
Well, I don't know about that. I think, we're still not within the top 50 hobbies. But from our point of view, we feel that we're gaining market share, which is pretty much what you have to do to show any growth right now. But I think cameras unit sales have finally stabilized, and the manufacturers have sort of found their footing to bring out better products that cost more. I mean, Fuji led the way with that with the X100, and I think the others are sort of following suit. Even Ricoh seems to be eking out a living.
Tech 70 is just burning up the charts.
I got a follow-up question to that, Peter. Like, how does the Canadian market differ from other markets? Because I remember we were always like a fairly small market compared, obviously, to the States, but even globally, and so that conferred different treatment from the dealers, the manufacturers, all that kind of stuff. So, how do Canadians differ with their brands that they like, and sort of the characteristics of how we like to buy cameras in Canada?
Well, I think the market here is a little bit more diverse than the U.S. Obviously, Canada is about 10% of the U.S. market, so globally, probably a couple of percent.
Yeah.
But, I think some of the other brands have larger market share in other countries. We've got a little bit more spread out. As I say, Ricoh actually has a tiny little footing here. OM Systems does a little bit of stuff. So Canon and Nikon, and now, of course, Sony, still are the lion's share, but I think it's a little more dilute than it used to be. Which is good on the topic from our point of view, because you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's something I was really curious about as well, is there's all these little niches that people get really excited about. Like right now we're hearing about the film boom. Like we're getting great traffic when we talk about film stuff. Like, does that actually make an impact at the store? Like, is this film boom enough to actually like make a difference to your bottom line? Or is it just something that a lot of people are excited about on the internet?
Well, I think it makes a little bit of difference. It's still less than 10% of dollar volume than it used to be. But it's certainly making a big comeback. And, we see crazy things like how Flick Film just down the road of here is doing internationally. And
I remember like a big part of my job when I started was condensing the film section every other week. Is just like, can we make it a little smaller? Can we push some of this stuff into a cupboard back there or something like that? And now you walk in and it's like actually growing. It's weird.
I remember.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, yeah, because like just to add on that, I remember when you hired me, which obviously you regret to this day. The store was like all film fridges, huge film fridges,
Yes.
right? And our customers would come in on a daily basis buying huge packs of Portra and huge packs of NPC and stuff. And it was all because they were shooting their commercial work with it.
Yep.
And you hired me right before the digital market took off. And we just had one glass showcase, like tiny glass showcase with insanely expensive compact point and shoots. How have you navigated all these changes over so many years? Like, what is that like? How do you stay on top of that? How do you figure out what the consumers need? What's trending? What's not gonna succeed anymore? And how do you manage that whole changeover?
It's difficult, as you well know. I mean, managing it, as you say, some very expensive cameras that you had to have in stock, but you turned over very infrequently, and the margin is okay.
Yeah.
And then, once Nikon and Canon put their minds to it, the volume increased, so it was a little less risky. But yeah, managing new inventory is always very difficult, and more than a few companies have failed because of that. So we paid a lot of attention, and we're lucky, I think.
Yeah.
We're very cautious, as you know.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, is that part of it? Is part of it kind of like not jumping on whole hog, but really seeing where the trends go and what your consumers are asking for? Or do you have to push them? Do you have to drag photographers kicking and screaming into new industries?
No, I don't think you do. I mean, mirrorless for us, we were early adopters of that. We immediately saw the benefits of it, where not all of our vendors did, and our competitors certainly didn't. So we embraced that far more quickly than others. But yeah, as the price of things have come down, it's a little less scary.
Yeah.
You can make more mistakes.
And the mirrorless is really interesting because that was the start for Chris and I, as we were like, this Panasonic GF1 is super cool. We need to like get the word out somehow. So obviously the best way is to just directly embed it on our website so that like 10 people can see it, not publish it on YouTube or anything like that, which is kind of how we got started. But that was a big thing I remember, is like all the regulars would come in and we'd just be like, hey, this is kind of cool, this mirrorless thing. That was the first one I remember being kind of compelling. And yeah, I know this is something that you were kind of at the forefront of, is just this mirrorless thing. Did it remind you of the digital boom where you could just see like, oh, this is the way it's going at this point?
I think so. As I said, we saw the benefits. And Panasonic for us led the way. As you may recall, we were having a little bit of a disagreement with Olympus at the time.
Wait, what?
Spill the tea.
Yeah, that company doesn't exist anymore, so that's fine.
Do you want to hear the story? It was funny.
I do, yes.
So they came to us, and it was the E300?
Yeah.
And they came to us and said, just so you know, Best Buy is going to put this on sale at this price just from Friday to Sunday. And the price they were going to sell it for, I think, was $300 below our cost.
Oh, geez.
So obviously we said we weren't very happy. They did it anyway. And then they came back to do it again. And again, we expressed our displeasure. But they did it anyway.
A nice way
he's undermining, I think, the tenor in the store at the time.
Yes, and the phone calls to the sales reps and the
Yep.
Colorful conversations.
And then they came back a third time to do it. Again, I think $300 below our cost. And I said, I think this is a mistake you're making. First of all, you make us look very uncompetitive, and we can't afford to do that. And you're screwing most of your dealers at the expense of one customer.
Yeah.
And they said, I think The sales manager at the time was very kind. He said, "Deal with it."
Peter, does this happen like with relative infrequency, or will you see another?
This was unusual.
So this doesn't happen very often. Period.
No, and so I said, you can't continue to do this. There's going to have to be consequences. And again, the response was deal with it. So I dealt with it by going $100 less than Best Buy the day before they were going to.
Just throwing money away out of spite, basically.
You knew you would be taking a major loss, and you did it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, we didn't sell many, and they, of course, were furious and said they wouldn't reimburse us, and I said I didn't ask you to. But they didn't do it again.
Okay.
Apparently, there were some words with Best Buy and them that weren't great, so I did my part.
Obviously, every industry's got politics behind it and stuff like that. But what was always so good about the camera store? I mean, customer service was key for sure. I think that's a big part of keeping business going and making people choose you. There's a reason why. I mean, you can get the same camera at the other competitors, right?
Yep.
So why
same camera,
why
same price? Yep.
Right. But also the pricing was always really good at the camera store. And I think it's important to talk about this. I was surprised getting into the industry, especially with digital. I think people kind of maybe assume, like a lot of the viewers might assume, like, oh, you guys are making 20 points, 30 points, 50 points on these products. That's pretty par for the course for other industries. But the margins in digital cameras are terrible.
Suck.
They're horrible. How do you navigate that difficulty of making sure the customers get the best price possible, still being able to keep the gas and the lights on and feed your employees?
Yeah, it's always a challenge. I mean, before, when you started, Chris, we didn't have minimum advertised price rules.
Right.
So we would forego margin for volume, and our volume was really good.
Yeah.
Now we have minimum advertised price and crappy margins. So that's the margins got compressed from SLRs to mirrorless cameras. So it's always more of a challenge. And then, of course, when something goes on promotion, there's an instant rebate, but the store doesn't get 100% of that back from every vendor. So often we're selling stuff below cost, and then we wait for a rebate, and we make our margin that way.
And just hope that, the rebate comes before, everything gets shut down, the power and everything.
Exactly.
Like that. Great business model.
What's the secret to the camera store? Because, I just assumed it was Jordan and I, but, you were doing...
Yeah,
you were doing great before us. You were doing great before us, and you're doing great after us. So, all joking aside, what is the sort of magic ingredient at the camera store that makes it so good and so popular and still so well loved?
I think that, as you say, customer service is where we started out. For the first year, it was me, and then we had some people join us. Ted Wingate joined us after about a year. And then we added slowly, and to us, that is the key. We always paid people, I think, better than our competitors, but we had fewer of them, so they had to work. So
hard. We had to work hard.
You should have.
Yeah.
This is what I really wanted is the trolling of Chris.
So we've always had to do more with less, and I mean that's the way you stay alive, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I have a question for you, Peter. I don't know if you're going to be comfortable answering this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Years and years ago, the first job I ever had in the photo industry is I was working for a photographic lighting manufacturer by the name of PhotoFlex, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yep.
Yeah, I ran the marketing department there.
Okay.
When I first got there, we did have a store. Like you could go to photoflex.com, you could place an order, and we'd ship it out of our warehouse in Watsonville, California. And I knew, speaking to the owner, Gene, and some of the other people in sales, that the dealers did not like that we did this. And we could never put anything on sale without them also being able to put it on sale. And then, of course, we would have to be able to rebate them and whatnot. eventually we just really downplayed our store entirely. Like, you could do it if you looked for it, but we didn't want anyone to, because the dealers would put up a big stink about it.
Right.
I've noticed over the last couple of years that seems to be turning again. So like I'm noticing a lot of the manufacturers, even the camera manufacturers, will happily sell direct to you. And some of them are starting to set up their own affiliate programs too. Yep. And these affiliate programs have 3 times the return to an outlet that they would get through a dealer, because essentially we're getting the wholesale price or whatever it is, whatever your margin is, plus their affiliate.
Yep.
So like, how do you foresee this working? And I'm sure you don't like this. And I'm just curious, like, how is this relationship working, and how are these camera companies able to get away with it? Do they not care about the relationship with dealers as much? I'm really curious how this is like falling down.
The dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly challenging. Canon was really the first one in Canada to do this. And, they claimed that their dealers didn't stock a lot of the small accessories, which I felt was disingenuous. I said, tell me what you need to stock so I can, support the customers, and I will. And they blew me off. So, but they are all becoming more aggressive. We see it all the time where they're trying to collect customer information, whether it would be they give the customer cash back after a purchase, double your warranty if you register your camera, that sort of thing. So they're all trying to bypass us. I think what they are missing is that people want to touch these things and get good advice.
And you have a Keurig machine, so we should also factor that in.
And we have a Keurig machine, yes.
Yeah,
incredible.
A library.
How can they compete?
And this is important because, the pandemic took it away from us, but the candy jar is back.
Oh, nice.
Thank God.
But you know what, though? I will say, like, when I started the camera store, there was always at the back of the area, like, couches where photographers could come, hang out, chat, talk shop and everything. Yep. And so I think that was always like a big part of it, right? You want to be like a destination where you could come, hang out, relax.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our business at the beginning was photojournalists, so we wanted to make sure that they had a place where they could come and have a coffee and upload their pictures.
Yeah.
So we made sure and they had, power to plug their laptop in and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting,
like outside.
Yeah. It's interesting though, like you're talking about Canon. I remember Canon opened a store, like a remember the theme store?
The Experience Center. The Experience Store, yeah.
The Experience Center in Calgary, in like the worst location possible. The rent must have been crazy. But very close to the camera store. And it was
that wasn't intentional, was it?
I'm sure it wasn't. And and the idea was they weren't selling anything, but the idea was you'd go in there, they would have people to show you all the product, and then you could go to their e-store and buy it, right? Like,
you could do it there. Go to the e-store.
Yeah, they would just be like, maybe I could sell it to you if I could grab this square reader that's under the counter here. But it wasn't like a store is not how it was pitched.
So
Peter, which is the showroom. Yeah.
Wait, so did that not do well, Chris?
It crashed and burned. Okay. It crashed and burned. And so why is that? Like, why you'd think, okay, it's a brand that a lot of people like. It was a really flashy space. Everything was out. Printers were out. Cameras out. You could play with everything. You assume the staff would have intimate knowledge of that because it's just one brand, right? We had to know like 1,000. Yep. So why did that crash and burn, and why did the camera store thrive through all that?
I think Canon's impression was that they saw a ton of business being done in Calgary, and they attribute it to the market rather than us.
Right.
And they were wrong.
Yeah, they underestimated the store.
Yeah.
Huh. And again, we're not just picking on Canon. I mean, I think it's important for the viewers to understand, like, seeing it from the side of the retailer. Obviously, retailers there to make money. It's an industry. We're paying employees. You're feeding families, all that kind of stuff. It's industry, and you have to make profit. But it was interesting to see how much the dealer actually has to go to war, in a sense, with all the industry manufacturers and all the dynamics to try to get the products in that people are going to appreciate and give them the right advice on those products.
Yep.
Yeah.
It seems like almost at times at odds or in confrontation with manufacturers, despite the fact that they need you
and competitors
quite a bit, right? Like it's just like what they're doing now, which is trying to sell direct and bypass you again, is I'm tell me if you think this is off base, but I feel like they're trying to get as much money as possible for each of their sales because their volume is down, but they make more. They're selling each individual product for more, so they're attempting to push back up their margins by selling higher, more expensive things for more and trying to retain as much of that as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, a lot of these mandates come from the US or Japan. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily something our vendors are really keen on, but they've been giving a job to do, and they have to do it. So.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to competition, obviously there's local competitors, but how has the whole internet sales thing changed the dynamic of the marketplace? You know, who do you have to compete with now besides just local competitors?
Well, we've always had to compete with B&H. They've always been our biggest competitor.
Do they ship easily to Canada?
Oh, yes. They sure do.
I did not know that.
The courier they used, coincidentally, is owned by the government of Canada, and they can ship cross a border from New York cheaper than I can ship something to Toronto.
Wow. So how do you beat them?
You just offer the service. I mean, that's actually something they've learned in the last few years is better customer service. So they are a formidable competitor, but you know, we've built a good brand and we have a loyal following and we get a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah.
So we talked quite a bit about like the current state of the industry, but I want to dip back because you have been in this business for quite a while. Whole time that we worked at the camera store, it was always like, you guys have no idea. Like in the glory days where there were margins on cameras and all kinds of things.
When I was a lad.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Even back before you owned this store, like you've been in the photo business. How long?
Yeah. 41 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so more than my life in that space. Yeah.
Almost mine.
We're all dating everyone almost exactly right now.
I think one of the reasons we've managed to be successful is Calgary has always been a very affluent market.
Yeah.
But it's always been a very competitive market. So, you know, back when I started, you know, there was small players Blacks didn't exist in Calgary at the time, but there was Astrophoto was the chain version of that. There was a few photo specialty places like Calgary Photo. A company called Super S Drugs did a lot of camera business. So Calgary was always an affluent but very price conscious. So I think it trained us to get by on smaller margins. We never relied on photo finishing. So when that cash cow evaporated, it didn't hurt us.
Okay, so that actually brings up something I want to talk about, Peter, because, you know, there's lots of other industries, and over the decades, I've seen the camera store diversify, you know, sport optics, telescopes, books, right? You guys have a huge library, probably one of the biggest photo libraries as far as photographic books go. Video, hired Jordan for video, right?
We did.
So, you know, photo finishing was very popular at the time because it had huge margins. So, like, what industries did you contemplate getting into, trying out, dip your toe in, maybe didn't work, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we did a little bit of outlab photo finishing business that was moderately successful.
Oh, I remember that, yes.
Telescopes, we still sell. We tried a little harder, but what I discovered about telescopes is whenever a customer wandered near them, they became invisible, so they got no attention from the staff.
This is a criticism of, Chris and I as well.
No. I sold the hell out of telescopes because I bothered to learn them.
Now the Peak Design strap section is the invisible place in the store.
I want to jump on, like, going back a little bit. This is something I really wanted to broach because we hear all the time people like, oh, you guys go on those fancy press trips, you and Chris, and, you know, that's really hurting your credibility and things. But we would always hear about, like, oh, man, some of the dealer stuff that they used to do back in the day was kind of bananas. So what's the most, like, out there kind of thing you can never think of like a camera manufacturer doing for like dealers or things at trade shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I missed most of that. I think that was probably in the mid to late 70s. So I unfortunately have, I've had the odd trip, but nothing that exciting.
Have you heard the stories?
Well, the wildest story I heard was in I think it was the late 70s when PMA was in Las Vegas. The story I heard was Konica had hired one of the vacant lots behind the Las Vegas Strip and had a tent there and helicopters, and they were flying people to the ranches.
Went to the bunny ranches?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
And when you used to go to a train...
Can you imagine, like, just think about it. Like, no.
I can't.
Okay, well, I can. And it's pretty good. And I'm like, can you imagine the industry in the 60s and 70s and 80s? Like, this was like the heyday golden era of photography. 35 mil film is exploding. So many brands, like, it must have been off the hook, right? The parties in Japan, the parties in the States. Like,
yeah, I never got any of that. I mean, at the trade shows, and you probably saw the tail end of this. Whenever you went into a large booth in Las Vegas and some extent in Photokina, there would always be scantily clad booth babes.
Mm-hmm. We did like a whole show about this.
Olympus, right?
I think Ted Forbes was in it. Yeah.
They've cleaned up their act significantly. It is. I would say that the shows are now gratefully boring.
There's still a lot of, they put attractive women in to answer questions, but they're in business attire.
Yeah.
And they're standing behind a counter. They're not hanging from a rope in a bikini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually
dressed entirely in
like what, tripods?
Yeah, like there was one where they were just like, "Oh, you can rig your camera with all of our gear. See, the women working our booth are entirely attired in rig components, like 15 millimeter rods." It
was like a naked Terminator.
Where was that?
That was the Shape booth. Right? Yeah, that was
full disclosure. Like Jordan and I did fly in a helicopter. They flew us out in Vegas in a helicopter to the top of like Red Rock Canyon, but there were 0 prostitutes waiting for us up there. Just so everybody knows.
That's the story you're sticking with, huh?
No, it's true. Yeah.
Shifting gears significantly from this. Last week, I mentioned on the podcast that it is difficult to find Fujifilm slide film now. Chris, I said I didn't specify slide film. So when I said, Chris, I can't find Fujifilm film, he's like, oh, no, the camera store has it. But the camera store has like the one just generic Fujifilm roll that you can get, that you can buy on Amazon for like $3.50. But the actual, like the stuff people like Ektar and Velvia is very difficult to find. And with Kodak actually boosting their production and making more and more film, I find it odd that in this environment where they can't make enough, Fujifilm appears to be going the other direction and trying to make less. And I'm curious if you can provide any insight, if you guys are if you talk to Fujifilm's film division about like, are you sending more? Are we going to be able to purchase certain ones? Like, what's the status there?
We're always asking that question, so I'm just going to have a quick look here. I've had Provia 100 and 120 on order since September
of last
2023.
year.
Yep.
Okay, so over a year you had an order put in, and they just aren't fulfilling.
Yep, and there's a lot from earlier from. Well, there's one from December. There's some Velvia from May. Lots of Velvia from May.
This appears to be like a North America, at least, problem, significant one. And I'm curious, like, why do you think this is happening?
Well, I don't think their manufacturing capacity is where it needs to be, and they're probably hesitant to ramp that up. Although Kodak seems to be a little. Or they could be concentrating on other markets where it's more lucrative. That I don't know.
Yeah, because I do believe, I can't remember if I'm saying this correctly, but I remember us reporting that Fujifilm partnered with another film producer in China to like get their film there. But upon closer inspection, the emulation is a Kodak emulation. They just stuck their label.
That's interesting.
On it. So like, I really don't understand a company who makes this much maybe they were just dedicating all their stuff to Instax. No idea.
Yeah, Instax, I think, has been more successful than they anticipated, and I don't think they have anticipated the rise of 35 millimeter and 120 film as quickly as it has been in the last 2 years.
So, Peter, well, we're being kind of nostalgic at points in this. I want to look back at what were your first impressions of Chris and I when we both started at the shop?
You can be brutally honest.
Yeah, brutally.
In fact, I would be disappointed if you're not.
Well, hey, look, Peter and I have had our honest moments with each other over the many, many years, haven't we?
We have. No, when we first hired Chris, he was very personable, but he had trouble fitting into any particular spot. We tried sales, we tried rentals, I think we tried other administration.
Yeah, shipping too, right?
No, just repairs.
I don't think shipping. Yeah. But yeah, and you got back into sales and it just clicked. Probably because I was around the floor less, maybe.
Wow, that's a very honest admission. Yeah, yeah. No, I remember starting. You know, like there was a lot to learn, lots of knowledge to bring in and stuff. But yeah, it was a fun run. Like there was a lot of good times, busy, and I loved it. I mean, I loved selling, getting the big numbers, and it was an exciting time. It was hard work, but it was good. It was rewarding.
Yeah, selling is certainly more fun than what I do most of the time now.
All right. Well, what about Jordan?
Oh, where to start with Jordan? Jordan, knowledge of video was certainly something that we never had before, so that was very good. On another note, our biggest question is, what is Evelyn thinking? We couldn't figure that out.
This is something I wanted to touch on because I think you were playing chess when I started at the camera store. Because I remember I worked at Black's Photography with my then girlfriend, now wife, Evelyn. And I remember you like coming to the Blacks and being like, Evelyn, come work for me. And she's like, I'm doing pretty good here at Black's. And then eventually I applied at the camera store and you took me on. Were you just playing chess to like, if we get Jordan over here, maybe we can get what we really want, which is the Evelyn like queen on this chessboard if we bring this 100%. Pawn in?
100%.
No, I can't say that was the case. I mean, I don't think I really knew who, yeah, I don't think I knew who you were. I certainly knew who Evelyn was because I'd known her a long time. And then when you started, and then Evelyn came in and talked to me one night, and she said, well, Jordan's here, so I can't really work here too. And I said, of course you can.
That'd be unethical.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, the camera store's bred a lot of love, a lot of breeding too, to be
certainly for you.
Yeah.
Don't like that.
Couple wives out of there. What's wrong with that? No, it's a store.
Phrasing.
Chris
it's a store full of love.
Wives here.
Yes, it's a store full of love. Yes.
I think that's the best outro we could possibly have.
Well, no, I do want to say though, I mean, so working for you, I mean, it was very rewarding. I learned a ton. You know, you brought me into this industry. It was pretty fantastic of you to do that. So I do appreciate it. And, yes, it's a difficult environment, but I think I found it very rewarding. And we're always in the camera store all the time. We
mostly had fun. I'm not always the easiest guy to work for. So,
you got your moments, you got your charms.
Well, I think what we all understood was, we're focusing on the customer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you look after the customers, they look after you.
One of my particular favorite charms, though, maybe to ring it out, if you can tell me, you gave me one of the best photographic jokes of all time. If you remember it now, how many photographers, Peter, does it take to change a light bulb?
What was that again? I think it was 7. One to change the light bulb and the others to say, I could have done that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that one rings so poignantly to me in my career now. Oh my God.
So I do definitely want to say, like, at the end of every PetaPixel episode, you see a rental equipment provided by the camera store.
Yes, thank you
You've
for that.
still been very good to Chris and I, letting us keep doing this after we left the shop. So big ups to the camera store. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Good to see you again.
Peter.
Nice to meet you, Jaron.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay, and we're back, guys, and we're going to get to some of our never read the comments and our tech questions. But what have you guys been up to? And I want to start here. Look, for my birthday, it was recently my birthday. If you guys saw last week's podcast, you know that. Mm-hmm. And my daughter got me a Lego creator kit with the camera, and so we built this little vintage camera together. Isn't that adorable?
Yes,
I love it.
Right behind me in my set is the camcorder variant from that same Lego kit, because it's a 3-in-1. So you could do a camera, a camcorder. There was something else, but it was probably stupid. That's why I didn't do it.
Like a little TV monitor screen. I was done. But it's like these gifts were made for Jordan and I, so it's really adorable.
Yeah.
So that's what you guys have been. Well, that's what Chris has been up to. What about you, Jordan?
It's been a weird weekend. I had a dog. I dog sat for the first time, and Chris is always like, "You love dogs. You should get a dog." It's a real pain. I'm not going to get a dog. Sorry, everybody. I love dogs.
This is probably why my dog doesn't want to be your friend. It can sense that you don't actually want a dog.
I don't want to own your dog. I want to hang out with your dog. I want your dog to love me. I don't want to be responsible for its well-being and veterinary
Jordan
bills.
wants all the love with zero of the responsibility.
Exactly.
Which is that's horrible. That's a horrible outlook on life. That will not work.
Okay. I've been roundly criticized for taking care of an animal. That's exactly
if you're responsible, the love will come.
This past weekend, I drove up to Seattle to go to a Gunpla traveling show where they had special edition Gunpla. It's been going across the United States.
You've been talking about this for a while.
I really wanted to go. I had no idea how popular it was going to be. So I've been following them on Instagram, and they show like pictures of like the event, and it does not look packed. It just looks like, there's wrong. I got there 10 minutes before they were supposed to open on Saturday, which I felt was reasonable. And there were probably 650 people in line in front of me. And then
that's nuts.
By the end of the day, there were more than 1,000 people in that line. They were trying to get through them all. It took me 5.5 hours to get to the front of the line and into the building, at which point the models that I was interested in getting were, of course, gone. So I didn't get them. So my wife put an over-under of 3.5 was the number of models that I would be purchasing. I ended up purchasing 3 because they did not have the ones that I wanted. And I was like, I've been in here for 5.5 hours. I'm going to walk away with something. That's right. So I did.
I thought you would buy 6, right? And so it sounds like if those models had been in, you probably would have bought 6.
Yes. But they weren't there, so couldn't do it.
Poor Jaron. He's like texting me and he's like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm in line for like 2 hours, blah, blah, blah. And then by the time he actually gets in, I'm like, Jaron, I've winterized my trailer. I finished the article for PetaPixel. I've prepared a turkey. It's in the oven. It's all done, ready to go and cooking. And we're going to start eating here by the time you get your Gunpla.
It was terrible.
So I feel for you. That must have been crazy.
So
but at least you got to talk to some cool people about a lot anime that I love.
Yeah. So the guy behind me was like, he really likes Pat Labor. He said it's like his favorite mecha anime, and they're making another one.
It's amazing.
He does recommend that Chris actually watch the show. There's not just the movies. There's a TV show you can.
The TV series, yeah.
By the way, I went back the next day because it's a 2-day event, and they would restock the ones that they ran out of the day before. I'm like, fine, I'll show up an hour and a half before they open this time and see where the line is. No. And the line was still, if I had gone and stood in it, it would have been another hour and a half to 2 hours from that point. After they opened an hour and a half later, before I would get, I was like, nope, not doing it. I just drove home. So this is
many people just straight up peed their pants in that lineup. That's wild.
It was crazy how popular it was. All right, before we get to tech support, I wanted to call out some of the versions of fixed lens cameras that viewers wanted to see in response to our topic last week. So I got an email from Graham who said, how about the Ricoh GXR? Ahead of its time, needs a new body with the ability to use old modules plus new ones with larger sensors. Great camera. Also the Sony f8.28 style cameras again. New sensor, maybe interchangeable lenses, great format. Take care and enjoy using your dad's film cameras. I used to work for Ilford, so try FP4 and HP5. I like those film stocks. I'm using those. But
there you go.
You guys like that idea?
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't know, the GXR, you'd actually swap out the sensors or sensor and lens were all. So it was just the physical controls of the camera that were fixed. And then you were juggling the optics, and sensor. But you could also get like an M mount for it if you wanted to use other lenses. And it's an interesting idea. Yeah, I still don't think it would fly.
It did surprisingly well for a camera that immediately you were like, this will never sell. It actually did surprisingly well. But yeah, small zooms with smaller sensors. But it was a neat idea. I could see somebody revisiting the idea and doing it better, but it would be a lot of investment in research and design.
The one cool thing with that is the lenses and sensor were like shielded, essentially, right? Because it was one module, units. So you didn't have to worry about like dust or anything like that. And that was cool to get an APS-C sealed zoom for sure.
Here are some other ones. Praetorian65 on YouTube says the Nikon Coolpix A. He's surprised that did not get a mention.
Make it pretty, and it'll sell.
Matt Maddox.
It was not very pretty.
Says that the medium format Rolleiflex 2.8 style body waist level digital.
Yes,
that's something that Chris has wanted. So not going to happen.
Yeah, for so long.
Somebody says
such a good idea.
The RX1 needs to be revisited. I think that's a shared opinion. A lot of people. I don't know why we didn't mention that. Maybe it's because it felt obvious.
Would do very well.
I think if anybody could do it, Sony could do it. You know what I mean? Like they have the budget to try it again, and I think it would actually get a lot of attention. It would get a lot of press and a lot of attention, and I think it might do well. Yeah, and they're one of the only companies that make that little pop-up EVF, which actually works and would be better than nothing at all on a compact body, which is what most people do.
Hessel Fulkertsma, who is, Hessel loves the podcast.
Yes, we've talked to Hessel before.
He commented on YouTube a bunch, but the ones that I think were ones we didn't mention. OM System, he'd like to see a modern MJU. I don't know what that is.
That's the clamshell.
The Mu is a cute little camera. Yeah. I think it was mostly Asian market and European markets. I'm not sure, but we never really got it here in a big way.
How about the Canon Ixus?
Cute little compact. Yeah.
I don't know what that is either.
What?
Yeah.
The Ixus was like a tiny little metal brick. We actually did a video with a gold version of one, a collectible edition of one.
They were kind of rebadged ELF in the digital side.
Yes, we called them ELF in the States.
Okay, that might be why I didn't know. I know what that is.
That might be why.
Finally, Zeiss trying the ZX1 again. Seeing how much effort they put into that, how badly it did and how poorly it performed and how badly it sold, I seriously doubt they're going to try again. Last one is from... Jean or Juan, I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Manuel.
Jean Manuel Vignon.
An LX100 with a G9 sensor.
Yeah, that's the one I want.
They're all great ideas.
Ultra wide. Yeah, make it happen.
All great ideas. I do like and we talked about this. We made a suggestion about this though before. They were also saying a Canonette, like a QL 17 or 19, or even just rebadging the classic Canonette with a 28mm lens. That would be cool. I think that would be awesome. Like a cute little digital rangefinder style could do really well. Canon should absolutely do that.
Thanks for all your suggestions, guys. Those are good ideas. We're going to move on to tech support. The first one is a speak pipe from Renee from Austria.
Hi guys, René from Austria here. My question or topic for discussion would be this. With all the latest kerfuffle surrounding Adobe, I tried various other software packages for RAW development. However, during that process, I realized that I actually really like the workflow of processing RAW files in camera. So now I just shoot RAW when out and about, and then as soon as there's a break, I whip out the camera and process those RAWs. I mostly do minor adjustments anyhow, so even when I'm on the PC, I don't need any high capabilities. So the functionality in my Panasonic GX9 or GH6 is totally sufficient. This way, as soon as I get back home to my PC, I have my final JPEGs ready, and just put the RAW files into the archive, and I don't waste any more time processing the files on the PC. And I'm actually also very happy with the results that I get this way. So what are your thoughts on this? Have you ever tried in-camera RAW processing? Is this something you have done in the past or need to try at some point? Looking forward to hearing from you. Love the podcast. Cheers.
Kerfuffle.
Yes, Renee used the word kerfuffle, Jordan's favorite. Well, Jeremy's favorite.
Yeah, I'm becoming a big fan. To give context, Renee, we actually have done this, but it's usually in the concept of
we're using a pre-production camera or a brand new camera that does not have RAW support yet, and we want to like get something out of the RAW files, right? I always shoot RAW no matter what, so that I have it as a backup for future use to do whatever. But we have processed the RAW files in camera doing that. I can see the benefit. The downsides, it hurts your battery life because you are using your screen and processing power in your breaks here. And you have very limited capability and a display that's usually not ideal for judging things like shadow and highlight and exposure and stuff. But absolutely, it can be a very useful tool to get your white balance kind of squared away, to get your exposure changed to some degree, albeit in fairly basic increments. It depends on the camera. But I could see it being useful to at least have JPEGs that look more like what your final intention would be. I would still, though, absolutely get home, take the RAW files, put them into Lightroom or whatever, and process them with the degree of nuance, subtlety that I can use with those programs.
The one thing I would add is I do this with Panasonic cameras, same as you, quite a bit, because I shoot the RAW file. I do want to be able to, I generally expose so I can push shadows a little bit and protect the highlights. And I want to send it right over to my phone to share on social media very quickly. And there I will process it in camera because I'm not paying for any mobile versions of like RAW processing camera software. So it can be very useful for that. And the results are good. I just always use the electronic viewfinder because those LCD screens, your ambient light's getting screwed up. They're not detailed. Just avoid that.
All right, the next one is from David from Spain. It's also a speak pipe.
Hey guys, this is David from Spain, and I have a very tricky question for you. They are day and night, but I love listening both your podcast and Jared's polling as well. Usually, both you and Jared always claim that you are not attached to any brand. Still, you clearly stated a few podcasts ago that Sony has the best autofocus system. And Jared stated the same, but in favor of Canon. Could you try to explain why such a divergence for something that can be analyzed in a quite objective way? Thanks, love your podcast.
I wash my hands of this. I'm out. Go, Chris.
No, so actually, David, it's not that tricky a question. So it depends on the context. And actually, Jared and we're not really disagreeing. So we actually did just recently say in our roundup that we feel that the Canon, the new R5 Mark II, is actually a very capable sports camera. And with innovative features like eye control AF, the sports mode that they have specific to volleyball, basketball, and soccer, and just improvements in their algorithms, we actually think that for sporting events and action events, the Canon is actually a better option. It actually is more predictable for where the subject's going to be, locking on the eye, all that kind of stuff properly, ignoring things like volleyball nets. And so in the context of sports, which Jared shoots a lot, I would say, yeah, Canon has actually taken the lead in that regard, especially if eye control autofocus works for your particular eye. And that being said, their wildlife autofocus algorithms are always good. You know, their eye detect is decent. It's gotten better. So I think Canon's done a really good job. Sony, they've always been the gold standard, and there's no denying that they really led with real-time tracking for so many years, and everybody wanted to be that. They really wanted to emulate Sony's thing. And I still think Sony's real-time tracking autofocus is the best. Just pick up the camera and go use it and get results. It really works with basically minimal input or zero input from the user. And I think that's a really powerful feature, especially for people just starting out or for people shooting more casual photography on, not sports and action. And they do a very good job for sports and action as well. But then you do have to go in and tweak settings and customize things and get it set up the way you like. So I don't think we're in disagreement, but it really does depend on the context. I don't feel like I would ever really say, oh, just one brand does the best thing. We're always open to changing our mind as new technology comes out and things change. So there you go.
All right, Jordan.
Does that make sense? I don't think we disagree. I think Jared and I.
Yeah, Jordan.
Okay, I think Jared and I agree on some things. That's one of them. A lot of things we don't agree on. That's fine too.
The next one is an email. This is just a nice sentiment from Joseph Alameda. Hi, I just want to say I love your videos. I've been watching you guys for years now. Your videos inspired me to get into photography, and I watch every new video. I live in Monterey, so if you are ever there again, I would love to show you some great photography spots or restaurants. Thanks for your amazing videos. Sincerely, Joseph Alameda. Thank you, Joseph.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, Joseph.
Similarly, not quite the same bay, but close. This is a speak pipe from Ernest Small. It came in earlier. I didn't get to it before the topic that he's discussing was there. Apologies for that, but we'll listen anyway.
Hey, Chris, Jordan, and Jaron. This is Ernest. I live in the Bay Area, and I love the podcast. You're one of the handful of podcasts that I listen to every week, every episode, and listen through all the episode. So appreciate what you guys do. Keep it going. You guys are great. I also just listened to this last podcast about the Olympics, and Leah just got a new follower. So appreciate you having her on there. She's great. But what I'm leaving this message for is you guys mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that you're going to be in the Bay Area for the Apple event, and wanted to give you a suggestion. Maybe you can make it happen. Would it be possible for you guys to have like a sort of like a photo walk that you can have some listeners hang out with you guys and maybe even shoot some photos? That would be great. Shot in the dark. I figure your guys' schedule is busy, so but give it a shot anyway. I'd love to hang out with you guys and pick your brains and shoot some photos with you guys. Maybe even have a beer. So thanks for the time. Appreciate you guys again. Catch you on the next one.
The reason I brought this up is it does bring some attention to the idea of a meetup of kinds. These are difficult to put together, and you never know how many people are going to want to show up. So it's
could be
a
Gundam
thought
situation.
Have you guys ever done a meetup? Yeah, 1,000 people. Oh my God.
You know what? The only time we ever did it that I can recall was a long time ago when we went to Photokina in Cologne for the first time. And so we were able to, and we didn't really have that much of an agenda to shoot a video there as much. Like it was really to go see the show, and it's a multi-day thing. So we had some free time, but as you do imply, Ernst, like it's normally very busy. Our scheduling is impossible. We're working. Anybody who goes on our YouTube, goes on the events with us that are other YouTubers can attest. Jordan and I are pretty much. It's like, sorry guys, we can't have too much fun. We got to go work. So yeah, to do a meetup would be difficult. We'd love to.
Yeah, it's just really tough when we're traveling because we schedule for what the time we need to get the projects done. So we don't generally pad our trips. Jaron can attest to this. So that's a big thing. And the other thing to remember with that Cologne meetup is we didn't organize that. That was the Northrups and Matt Granger actually did. And then we were like, can we come hang out with you guys as well? And piggybacked on it. So we didn't have to organize it, do any of the messaging, anything like that, which is why we were part of that. But if we're in charge of organizing it, it's not going to happen.
Probably not. But we appreciate the support. And thank you for watching the podcast and the show. We appreciate that.
The next one is an email from CL. Hi, this is CL Goose Maiden. My question is very simple. I have been a lifelong Canon shooter. I shoot sports and fashion. All of my lenses are Canon L-series lenses except one, and that's the Sigma 120-300 f2.8. Do you think Sigma will produce a new 120-300 f2.8 or a 100-300 f2.8 for the RF system? Or for that matter, any of the new mounts for Nikon or Sony? I still use mine adapted to my R3 and it works great, but I would love to have the Canon RF 100-300, and one day I will get one when I can swallow that $9,500 price tag.
Yeah. Goose, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. That'd be a great idea. I mean, that Sigma 120-300 f2.8 was a beautiful lens, big lens, but it was heavy, it was sharp. I remember people buying that in droves for sports because it was also, and wildlife, because it was also reasonably priced given what it was. And yeah, the 100-300 is awesome. I get it, very expensive. So I would love to see a more compact 120-300 f2.8 mirrorless. I don't know if they'll do it, but I hope so.
I think the 500-5.6 gave us some hope because it seemed like Sigma was kind of abandoning high-end telephotos there for a while. But that was one of the sharpest lenses we've ever tested. So maybe they'll get back into doing that. And yeah, the 120-3, it's currently only available in RF mount, which is what Sigma's not producing full-frame lenses for right now. So there'd be tons of room for Sony shooters, Nikon shooters who don't have access to something with that focal length. I think would be really excited by it. So hopefully there's definitely a gap there.
I don't get a strong sense that Canon is anywhere near allowing full frame optics on the RF mount.
Yeah,
I just don't from third party vendors. Like it took years to get them to allow it on APS-C, and only when Canon realized they would rather focus their efforts on making full frame glass. So they don't want it. And I'm not
2028. That's my prediction. That's when Canon will allow third party autofocus lenses on RF mount full frame.
Two more. Second to last one is a speak pipe from John Eamon.
As cameras have become more and more technologically advanced, it seems to me that we all spend less time celebrating photographers' technical skills. I'd love to hear each of you talk about some photograph that you are especially proud of for the technical skill it has required of you. Jordan, you could also talk about this in the context of cinematography if you prefer.
I'll go first. The photo that I'll put it up on screen right now. I was actually coached by Jeff from Nikon on how to do this. This took me multiple attempts to get it right, but it's a matter of using a slower shutter speed while actively moving the camera and panning with the subject so that you get a blurred background but a tack sharp subject. This is very difficult to do, and I didn't even do it as well as I could have. I should have used an even slower shutter speed to get even more blur, but this is the best I could do. This is the one that came to mind when you asked the question. So, and for those listening, it's a car. It's a car moving through a shot, and you want to get like the background for motion, sort of thing.
Yeah, for mine, like I'm going to cheat and not do a photo. I mean, most of the photos I really love are related to my family. Like I don't tend to shoot. If I see something really beautiful, I'm like, oh, I'm going to roll a clip of video on that as well. So the thing I would say visually I'm most proud of is you can find a short film called Metanoia is on YouTube. This is the first thing I did with my friend Levi Hallwell, who's been on this podcast before. And I think the movie we did later, A Walk Down to Water, is a better film. But if you want to just see, like the idea with Metanoia is it has a lot of dream logic in it. So we didn't need our light to be motivated. We were just like, let's make this look cool and pretty. And a lot of it takes place late at night. So yeah, if you want to see some of the best looking stuff I've ever done, you can just find it on YouTube.
For me, I wouldn't say that the photos that require the most technical skill have necessarily been my favorite photos that I've taken. But doing the job that we do, I've had to kind of expand into a lot of different fields, right? I'm not a fashion photographer. I'm not a food photographer. I'm not a portrait photographer. I have to do everything. I have to be a jack of all trades for the requirement of all the gear. So from a technical standpoint, actually shooting some of the food photography in Idaho, that was a stretch because I've never done that before.
Those are good.
Jaron was a fantastic assistant. But also, I think for me, astrophotography is something that's required a little bit more technical expertise or knowledge of hand, lots of experimentation, and I'm still not getting shots that I love. But some of the shots that we took down near the Milk River, I really liked riding on Stone National Park. And so that whole learning process and of doing that, I think has been a lot of technical requirement.
Last one is a YouTube question from Costa Phil Ho, Costa Phil. Costa. I don't know how to say any of these names.
We should do a podcast where it's just trying to figure out people's names.
I just mispronounce all of them. The question is, with improvements in image quality and speed becoming negligible with each camera update for most users and even professionals, and after the AI train, when do you see manufacturers shifting their focus from hardware to user experience, like we're already seeing in the phone market? I believe there's a consensus that the camera experience software on the camera phone desktop needs major improvements to become truly useful and enjoyable to use, from real-time backups to file exports, changing settings, etc. And that would probably be much more noticeable and appreciated than more megapixels and more FIPS for most users.
This is a tough one because this is like companies have tried this a few times where they say, okay, do we get into the touchscreen interfaces that people really appreciate on smartphones and try to modernize the experience, which does make sense because if a lot of people are starting out with a smartphone, it would make sense when they go over to a camera that they have a similar experience to make the transition easier. At the same time, and again, all the manufacturers, we've seen a huge push on this recently. They're all talking about entry-level cameras, and they always say, we made the camera so that a smartphone user can move into it easily. But the majority of that is just dumbing the camera down, and that I don't think does a service. It's a disservice to everybody using it. And I don't think photography is that hard, that people need that thing. And on top of that, I personally think that a lot of people like the experience of using a real, I'm air quoting, real camera because it's a completely different experience. Touchscreens, I hate using a smartphone for photography as far as the ergonomics go. I would far prefer dials, buttons, and switches, which I can manipulate. I know are going to change easily. I don't have to worry about weather or wet fingers or rain, not working or having to wear gloves and stuff. Like I prefer the tactile experience. So maybe I'm just an old man about it, but I really don't think I want that. As far as maybe having apps on the camera that I could then use after taking the photos to make uploading to social media easier, having more of a smartphone UI on the screen for that kind of stuff. Absolutely, I can see that
processing the RAWs, like we talked about earlier in this episode.
Processing the RAWs.
Use for it. I think someone is going to blow up the camera interface, just start from scratch completely, but a major manufacturer, because I would say Leica and Hasselblad are actually fairly close to this, but they're like high-end luxury brands, so they're not really having that kind of impact on the general market. So I think if we see one of the big three bring out like, look, we threw everything away and built the whole camera interface from scratch again to make it more intuitive, lose a lot of the legacy settings and make it less intimidating. If that camera succeeds for reasons beyond that interface, that's going to force everyone else to update theirs. But for the time being, it's like, look, we're all just using old, menus that look like they could have come from 15 years ago. As long as no one's forcing us to develop the R&D to change them, we're not going to. So someone's got to produce a really popular camera. And you'd think the smartphones would be enough of a kick for them to just be like, oh yeah, people want a more intuitive interface, but it hasn't been so far. And all they seem to do is look at what is the other camera company doing.
Yeah. For my money, I don't want like a new shooting experience, that somebody else has decided is the way to go personally. What I always appreciate with a camera, and maybe it's because I'm using new ones all the time, what I appreciate with a camera is if I pick it up, whatever my initial thought would be to change something, I want that to be possible. So I like cameras that have a good touchscreen interface, like Canon, for example, is a great example where you have a really nice touch interface, or Leica, Hasselblad to some degree. But I could also do it with dials, but I could also do it with the autofocusing joystick, but I could also do it, with customizable buttons. Like I want to have a situation where no matter what I need to do, if I want to do it, I can do it quickly in multiple ways. Because then I'm not sitting there being like, oh, where's that control again? What was that's why I hate the iPad, for example, as far as the interface goes, because they really force you to do it one way, and I can't stand it. So, that's my money. That's what I want.
All right.
But that does mean extra complexity.
Thanks, everyone, for the questions. We're going to end the show with the feel-good story of the week. Amateur Photographer Magazine celebrated its 140th anniversary last week. That's 140 years in print.
That's crazy.
Isn't that insane?
Good for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Nigel Atherton, the group editor, said, when Amateur Photographer launched on October 10th, 1884, photography had only been around for 45 years. It was a slow, complicated, and expensive process practiced almost entirely by the well-heeled. In its early years, Amateur Photographer wasn't even able to reproduce photographs. Over the decades, photography equipment, processes, and styles have continually evolved, but AP has been there to keep its readers inspired and informed. Today, AP reaches over 1 million people worldwide in print and on our various online and social platforms, and we continue to navigate and report on the rapid changes that are happening in photography today. Congratulations to Amateur Photographer for making it 100.
I don't think we know anyone at Amateur Photographer currently. But our buddy Barney Britton that we used to work with, that's where he got his start, was over there doing some of their camera reviews. So they got to make it to 150. They got to, right? I know it's tough for magazines right now.
Well, it sounds like the viewership is doing good. It's nice to hear a success story there amidst all of the sadness when it comes to online publications. So,
yeah. Congratulations again to Amateur Photographer. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we have a special episode. We'll look forward to that.
Yes, from special location.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to our sponsors, OM System and Tamron this week. Really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one.
See you soon. Bye.